My name is Lena Hart, and I walked into my sister's wedding alone. Not because I had no one to bring, but because I needed to. I needed to remember how to walk into a room without shrinking, without performing, without apologizing for being who I am. The reception hall was lit like a dream gold chandeliers, floral walls, and marble floors that made every heel click feel like a gunshot. But the moment I stepped in, the lights felt colder than they looked. It wasn't quiet, not really, but I could still hear the shift. Heads turned lips, whispered some eyes flicked downward to check for a ring that wasn't there. I didn't flinch. One of the women near the front, a member of my sister's new in-law clan, I guessed leaned into another woman's ear and said just loud enough, "Still single, poor thing." I could feel their eyes on me crawling over my black dress, my bare hand my choice to stand tall rather than bring a placeholder. My sister Marissa the bride didn't even acknowledge me. Not with a wave, not even with a glance. She was up front in a cloud of chiffon and glitter laughing with her groom and his family like she had already forgotten I existed. And honestly, maybe she had. I found a seat near the back. No one offered to scoot over or ask how I'd been. They all just seemed embarrassed I was there. I didn't match their symmetry, their ideal. I was the misaligned puzzle piece they tried to hide behind napkins and centerpiece flowers. I wasn't always this woman. Once I tried to be what they wanted. I tried to care about the things that made sense to them, smiling without reason, dating for convenience, folding my ambition like laundry. But I learned. What none of them expected, what not even I could have anticipated, was what happened next. From the center table a man stood. He rose slowly but deliberately, like someone who didn't get up often, but when he did, people noticed. His silver hair caught the light, and his tailored navy suit hugged his frame like it had been sewn directly onto him. I recognized him. Jonathan Reeves, the groom's uncle, chairman of a multi-billion-dollar logistics firm, and a name whispered around startup conferences like an urban legend. I'd seen him in keynote lineups, never imagining we'd occupy the same oxygen. He looked straight at me, and then he bowed. Not a nod, not a polite tip of the head. A full, proper bow. The kind no one gives anymore unless they mean it. Every fork in the room paused. A glass clinked awkwardly. Someone gasped. And for the first time since I entered, no one was laughing. That moment cracked something in me. You'd think I'd be flattered, maybe blush, maybe rush to play it humble. But I just stared back. Not cold, not shocked, just solid. Because whatever it was he saw in me, it wasn't news to me. I had known it. I had lived it. Mr. Reeves walked over. Calm, direct, measured. "Miss Hart," he said with a voice that landed softly, but carried across the entire room, "it's a privilege to finally meet you. Your AI integration model from last year's Denver summit saved our Pacific branches over $40 million in projected losses. I've been hoping to thank you in person." The room collapsed into silence. Aunt Celia's jaw dropped. One of the groomsmen dropped his phone. My sister froze bouquet, trembling in her hands. I stood slowly, nodded once, and said, "Thank you, Mr. Reeves. It's an honor." And for the first time in years, I felt seen not for my relationship status, or my dress, or my ability to smile on cue, but for what I had built alone in the dark without them. That was the moment everything shifted. When I was 10, I dismantled our old toaster to figure out why it always burned one side. While Marissa was twirling in the living room in a princess dress, I sat cross-legged in the garage, surrounded by springs and wires, more fascinated by circuits than sparkles. I wasn't trying to be difficult. I just wanted to understand how things worked. My name is Lena Hart, and I've spent most of my life being the wrong kind of daughter. Marissa, blonde, blue-eyed, born with a giggle that melted strangers, was everyone's favorite from day one. Teachers adored her. Neighbors brought her extra cookies. My mother, Judith, beamed when Marissa won Little Miss Glenbrook in second grade and kept the sash on the fireplace mantel for 3 years. Me, I was the one they described as bookish. Serious, quiet. When I won the regional math bowl at 13, my father Walt barely looked up from his paper. "That's good," he mumbled. "You gonna clean up that mess on the table now?" There was always a table to clean, a dress too plain, a tone too blunt. I was too much or not enough, but never quite right. At 16, I skipped prom to attend a coding boot camp in Phoenix. My mother grounded me for missing memories. Marissa cried because we didn't take a sister photo. I didn't tell them I'd already landed a scholarship from a visiting MIT rep who watched me debug a back-end database in under 3 minutes. But it didn't matter. At holidays, I was the cousin who always worked. At weddings, I was the one asked if I was still doing the computer thing. Once at a family dinner, my uncle said, "You'd be prettier if you smiled more." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had a pitch deck due the next morning for a Series A funding round. Smiling could wait. Marissa, of course, was the golden child. Her first marriage, high school sweetheart, Instagram able honeymoon open bar, with matching signature cocktails, ended in under 2 years. But everyone treated her like she'd just come back from a retreat, not a divorce court. Her second husband was older, kind, and forgettable. That one fizzled too. No scandal, just a gentle fade. But her third, Grant Wallace, heir to the Wallace distribution empire, all suits and southern charm, was her masterpiece. Their engagement announcement looked like a luxury perfume ad. My invitation came late. No call, no warmth, just a thick envelope in embossed ivory, with my name spelled correctly for once. I RSVP'd yes. Booked a flight from Seattle to Charleston. Packed one bag. I wore black. Not out of protest, but because it's who I am. Clean, calm, sharp. When I landed, my mother called. "Just remember," she said, laughing like it was a joke, "this isn't one of your tech conferences. No need for slacks or statistics." I smiled through my teeth. "I'll try to behave." Of course, my seat at the reception was at table 17, next to the cousin who once asked if I could hack her ex's Facebook, and the aunt who still thought I lived in California. No one asked about my work. No one mentioned Zurich or the venture fund I'd co-founded that just closed a $90 million round. Instead, they asked, "So, are you dating anyone?" By the time Mr. Reeves bowed, I had nearly convinced myself it didn't sting anymore, that I was fine with being the forgotten one. But when that man, the most powerful one in the room, bowed in front of everyone, I realized I wasn't numb. I was exhausted. From pretending. From minimizing. From giving my family the right version of myself to make them more comfortable. He didn't know that. He didn't need to. But when he looked at me and said, "Your work reshaped our transition process entirely," I felt it. That old ache of wanting someone in my own family to say the same. I could feel their recalibrations around me. Whispers stalled. Chairs turned. Even the waitstaff slowed, unsure of how to respond to the seismic shift in the room. I didn't enjoy their silence. I let it sit there cold and heavy. The bride, my sister, approached me moments later. Her smile strained like stretched fabric. "What was that?" she asked, through clenched teeth. "Why is Uncle John talking to you like you're some kind of celebrity?" "He's not," I said softly. "He's talking to me like someone who knows what I've built." Marissa blinked. "You could have warned me." I almost laughed. "You could have asked." She didn't reply. Because that's the truth, isn't it? No one ever asked. They assumed, judged, and reshaped me in their heads. I became a silhouette in their curated family photo, a shadow version of the daughter they wanted. But I never needed a spotlight. I just wanted to be real, to be seen. And that night, I was. After dinner, the reception hall glowed in gold and champagne, the kind of staged elegance made for Instagram reels. String lights wrapped around marble columns. A jazz trio played softly near the bar, and servers in white gloves passed around truffle canapes like party favors. And yet all I could hear was the ringing in my ears from the whispers just before Jonathan Reeves had stood. The groom's cousin, some 30-something with a stockbroker haircut and a jaw too proud for his age, had muttered to his friend, "Pretty, but cold." One of those types who marries her career and wonders why no one claps for her. His friend chuckled. You can just tell she expects a standing ovation for showing up alone. I was halfway through a sip of club soda. For a second, I nearly choked not on the drink, but on the years of quiet I'd swallowed, the measured smiles, the polished indifference. That moment teetered between staying seated safe, unseen or rising, and then the scrape of a chair. Deliberate. Heavy. Not rushed. Jonathan Reeves rose again. This time, without announcement, without any pretense. He moved past Grant and Marissa's table, past the wall of perfect smiles and monogrammed napkins, and he walked toward me slow but certain, as if nothing else in the room mattered. He stopped in front of my table, in full view of 100 stunned faces, and said, "Miss Hart, your keynote last November in Atlanta, it changed our firm's acquisition model. 3 divisions benefited directly. I owe you a personal thank you." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Every conversation died. Every clink of glass went silent. He reached for a passing server and requested a glass of club soda for himself. Then turning to me asked with a nod, "Would you walk with me for a moment?" I rose. Not out of shock. Not for drama. I rose because I knew this moment was bigger than me and not about validation but clarity. Something I hadn't had in this family since I was old enough to ask why, instead of smiling pretty. The terrace outside the venue overlooked the harbor. It was quiet, only the soft hum of water and distant laughter slipping through the windows behind us. I stood beside him, the wind brushing loose strands from my bun. "I meant what I said in there," Jonathan began. I nodded. "I believe you." He glanced at me sideways. "They don't know, do they? Your family." "No," I said. "They know the bullet points, the scraps. My mom once forwarded an article I was quoted in, but I don't think she read it." He chuckled, but there was no mockery. Just understanding. "Vanessa, sorry, Marissa's family, they value surface. Presentation. I don't blame them. It's just, they wouldn't recognize legacy unless it came in the form of a ring or a headline. That hurt more than I wanted it to." But he wasn't wrong. "They've been taught to look outward," he continued. "But real builders, we build inward first. We know the silence of empty rooms and blinking cursors." I turned to him surprised. "You know my work." He smiled faintly. 3 years ago, our firm almost invested in a now-defunct AI provider. Then your model landed at the Denver Tech Summit. Clean, scalable, and more importantly, ethical. You saved us millions and redirected our entire infrastructure team. I make it my business to know who changes the game." He paused, thoughtful. "Your sister. She doesn't know what she missed out on. But I'm not here to embarrass her. I just thought, some illusions deserve to be broken." The wind picked up slightly, fluttering the edges of his jacket. Inside, the reception had resumed. Toasts, laughter, curated perfection. I stood there beside him. No applause, no spotlight. Just a man who saw what others didn't. He turned to me again, more formal this time. "I'm building something new. Private, quiet, but impactful. I need voices that aren't desperate for stage lights. I want to talk to you on Monday about a partnership. A real one." I didn't answer right away. Not out of pride, but because I could feel the weight of years on my shoulders, the ache of trying to be seen, to be enough, slowly lifting. I wasn't scrambling anymore. I had a choice. Eventually I said, "Let's talk Monday." He nodded once. No handshake, no performance. Just understanding. Back inside, everything had changed. People stood when I returned, not all but enough. Even the photographer hovered near, unsure if I now required documentation. Gloria Grant's mother looked like she'd tasted something sour. Grant himself looked confused, and Marissa, her smile, frozen bouquet trembling, walked straight toward me. "What was that about?" she whispered. Too close, her voice lined with desperation. I didn't flinch. That I said was someone recognizing what you never did. Her mouth tightened. You couldn't let me have one day, I tilted my head. One day, Marissa, you've had a lifetime. She stared at me, stunned, and for once I didn't feel small in her gaze. I returned to my seat. No applause, no backpats, but the air around me felt different, still, and for the first time in years, no one laughed. The speeches started soon after. The best man cracked predictable jokes about Grant's college days. Marissa's maid of honor, her college roommate Kelsey, gave a sugar-coated toast about finding your person, her voice, shaking as she tried to keep emotion and envy separate. I stayed silent. At table 17, no one looked at me anymore. Not with mockery, not with confusion, just avoidance. Like they weren't sure if I was now too important to make small talk with, or too familiar to apologize to. Then came the final toast, Mr. Wallace Grant's father. A thick man with a Texas drawl and a tie too shiny to trust. His voice boomed as he raised his glass, chuckling through practiced words. To love, to family, he declared. To all the people who came tonight to support these two fine young folks, even those who prefer the boardroom to the ballroom. Some guests chuckled. Lightly. Just enough, but not Jonathan Reeves. I felt him shift beside me, then stand slowly. He placed his drink down unhurried and turned to the room again, his voice calm but sharper this time. I'd like to add something, he said. The room was silent. Jonathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. It takes very little talent to inherit wealth, he began. It takes even less to marry into it. But the woman sitting beside me tonight, Lena Hart, has done neither. She has created value where there was none. She's earned respect in rooms none of you will ever be invited into. Silence. He lifted his glass. So if we're raising a toast tonight, mine is to her. Not a whisper in the room. Not a clink of a fork or a breath out of place. I didn't smile. I didn't look around seeking approval. I just lowered my eyes to the table, fingers resting on the stem of my glass, heart steady. Because this wasn't about being praised. It was about being understood. Across the room, Marissa looked like she wanted to scream, but her lips stayed frozen in that photo smile. Her bouquet was now visibly shaking in her grip. My parents, they looked stunned, frozen mid-toast. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she lowered her glass eyes, darting like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. I knew that look. My father is trying to recall the details I once told him years ago about funding rounds, AI models, and my TEDx talk. My mother was blinking hard, probably remembering a newsletter she meant to read but never did. For years, I wanted that moment to see recognition in their faces. I thought if I worked hard enough, became successful enough, they'd finally see me. But as I watched them shift in their seats, their silence thick with uncertainty, I realized something bitter and freeing. I didn't need them to see me anymore. I'd already seen myself. When the music started back up and the wedding resumed, my mother approached. Slowly, carefully, the way you step across thin ice. You look beautiful tonight, she said, her voice soft, cautious. I nodded. Thank you. She hesitated. We didn't know about all that. About Mr. Reeves. Zurich. The work. She tried to reach for my hand, held it lightly for a second. I'm proud of you, Lena. Excuse me, why are you allowed now, Mom? She didn't answer, just held my hand tighter. As if the decade of silence and being ignored at family dinners. Later, as I moved toward the exit, Marissa caught up to me near the coat check. Her veil was off her perfect waves, undone from the dancing. Her eyes looked glassy, equal parts, tired and unready to give up. I didn't know he knew you, she said. Uncle Jonathan. I had no idea. You never asked. I replied. That's not fair. No, I said. It's just accurate. She looked away. You always made me feel like I wasn't enough. I tilted my head. That's funny. You and Mom always made me feel like I was too much. She didn't respond. And that was the last thing we said to each other that night. I didn't go back to the party. I didn't wait for cake or dancing or family group photos where I'd be tucked behind someone tall and forgotten. I walked out into the night alone. But this time, no one laughed. Outside beneath the velvet sky, the lights from the ballroom flickered across the glass windows. Inside, the music was loud again. The fairy tale resumed. But I didn't feel like the outsider anymore. I felt like the only one who had left the stage before the play got cheap. A few guests passed me on their way to the valet, now nodding too politely. A couple looked sheepish. One man, maybe early 30s, stopped just long enough to say, "Wait, I didn't realize you were that Lena Hart." I looked at him. "You still don't," he stammered. "Right. Sorry." Then walked off with his wife. I didn't need their apologies. I didn't need their awe. I just needed to breathe. Monday morning came quietly with no drama, no headlines, just sun pouring through my apartment windows and a calm that felt earned, not borrowed. My inbox was already awake before me. One email stood out. Subject: Let's begin JR Simple. Direct, no pitch deck, no flattery. Just a Zoom link and a time 10:00 a.m. I poured myself a coffee black. Saturday in my favorite chair, the one with worn arms and a slight tilt to the left. And I waited not for permission, but for the door I'd already opened to swing wider. The meeting with Jonathan lasted 47 minutes. He didn't waste time with small talk. We walked through the first phase of the venture, an incubation lab for ethical AI tools focused on long-term resilience over short-term exits. He wanted me in as a co-founder, not a consultant, not a face, a builder. Equity splits generous, he said, but I know what you bring. I won't insult you with a lowball. I didn't flinch. I'm not interested in generosity, I replied. I'm interested in control. He smiled, spoken like someone who's had none for too long. We talked numbers, team, and timeline, and when the call ended, I didn't celebrate. I didn't call anyone. I didn't post it to LinkedIn, because something inside me had shifted. This wasn't a trophy. It was a threshold. That night, I walked through my apartment and paused at a shelf near the window. On it was a framed photo of Marissa and me as kids, her in a tutu, me in scuffed sneakers reading a book upside down. I took the frame down, not in anger, just readiness. I tucked it into a drawer, not to forget, but to stop defining myself by someone else's spotlight. The next weekend, the thank you cards went out. Marissa sent hers via email, polished templated. I got one too. Dear Lena, thank you for being part of our special day. Your presence meant the world to us. Love, Marissa and Grant. No mention of Jonathan. No mention of what happened on the terrace, or in the hall, or during the speech that reshaped the air in that ballroom. But that's the thing about certain families, they only process what fits the narrative. So I didn't correct it. Instead, I wrote my card. Just one. I mailed it to myself. Dear Lena, you did not need to be clapped for to be valuable. You did not need to be seen to exist. But now that you've been seen, don't ever shrink again. With love, the version of you who finally walked away with her worth. I keep that card on my desk. Not for affirmation. For remembrance. Because I once went to a wedding where I wasn't wanted, and left with something far more valuable than applause. I left by myself. Lena Hart walks into her sister Marissa's wedding not as a guest of honor, but as the family outsider, the forgotten, overlooked sibling who spent a lifetime in the shadows. While Marissa basks in praise and attention, Lena endures subtle mockery and cold indifference from relatives who never saw her as enough. But what no one at the wedding knows is that Lena has quietly become a powerful figure in the tech world, backed by none other than billionaire investor Jonathan Reeves. When Jonathan arrives and publicly acknowledges Lena, not just as an acquaintance, but as a future partner in a groundbreaking AI venture. The room freezes. A single toast from him redefines how everyone sees her. For once, Lena isn't dismissed or mocked, she's feared, respected, and envied. Through tense encounters with her parents and Marissa, Lena realizes the applause she longed for won't heal the years of neglect. Her mother offers a belated "we're proud of you," but Lena doesn't take the bait. Instead, she walks away from the wedding with something far more valuable than family validation: the quiet certainty that she doesn't need it anymore. The following week, Lena finalizes her deal with Jonathan. She turns down performative recognition in favor of real power. When her sister sends a generic thank you email, Lena sends something else to herself: a letter of acknowledgement, pride, and release. What began as an uncomfortable evening ends in transformation. Lena came alone, uncertain of her place, but she leaves with her future in her own hands, no longer defined by the roles her family assigned her. This is a story about reclamation, about refusing to be small to make others comfortable, and about walking out of the room when applause no longer matters.